Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about Facebook targeting and what I call the Rubik's Cube theory. Well, I only called it that about 5 minutes ago. I just gave it that name, but that's what it is. Today, that's what we're going to talk about is Facebook targeting with the Rubik's Cube theory. Okay, so let me explain what I mean by that. Did you know, most of you didn't probably, that the Rubik's Cube can be solved with under 20 moves? There's actually all kinds of algorithms online. If you go to Rubik's Cube's very own website, you'll find that the Rubik's Cube can be solved with only 6 steps. There's only 6 steps. Just a few different moves that you have to make with 6 steps, and you could solve the Rubik's Cube. Anybody can. So whenever you watch a YouTube video and you see somebody solving the Rubik's Cube in 20 seconds, you watch a movie, you see an actor solving a Rubik's Cube really quickly in 20 seconds, and you're like, wow, how'd they do that? How'd they learn to do that? It's simple. They just got an algorithm and did the 6 steps, and they solved the Rubik's Cube, and it's right there on the Rubik's Cube website. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means that there was a proven process that works every single time. And you could sit there twisting and turning and trying all of these maneuvers, trying to be, having all of these strategies and all of these crazy philosophies and everything you want about the Rubik's Cube, about how to solve it. But all you really need is a process. All you really need is a 6-step process that you can find right on the Rubik's Cube's website. Okay, so here's the thing. The difference between a Rubik's Cube and your business: a Rubik's Cube, you could spend time having fun and just playing around with it. With your business, you can't. You need a process that works, okay? With Facebook advertising, with Facebook targeting, you need a process that works. You can't just start throwing shit at the wall and hope that it's gonna stick. I used to say that a lot. I used to say that the very first part of growing your e-commerce business or your online business is about testing, and that means you're just throwing shit at the wall and hoping that it sticks. But the reality is that's not anything what it's like, at least when you're doing it my way. If you're doing it just some random way, then sure, that is what it's like. You're just throwing stuff out there and just hoping that it sticks. But if you're gonna do it with a process, then what you're doing is, it's more like a potter with clay, and he throws that clay down onto the spinny wheel thingy jigger, whatever it is, you guys know what I'm talking about, and he molds that pot, or he molds that clay into a beautiful pot or into a beautiful vase, right? So he threw a clump onto the wall, or a lump into the wall, or whatever you want to call it. He threw it down but formed it into something beautiful. He wasn't just waiting for it to stick. Okay, so it's the same thing with when we come at our e-commerce, when we come with our Facebook targeting, we're going to have a process, and it's what I call the Rubik's Cube process. As things have gotten more competitive on Facebook and the algorithm continues to change, the ways we go after our audiences, the ways we put out our ads and set up our campaigns, all of those ways change as well. And so the old ways of going after your targeting was one of 2 ways. One, you were breaking it up by something like communities, brands, celebrities, and buyer interest. There was a certain type of category, and those were really the top 3. Those were the top 3 categories that people talked about breaking them up by: communities, brands, and celebrities, or buyer interest. Or the second way of breaking up your ads, well, it really wasn't breaking them up, was really just a lump. All of the targeting options that you could find, just lump them all together into one ad set and call it good. And that was kind of like a lump audience. I still do lump audiences. They still work. And I still break things up by community, brand, celebrity, buyer interest, and they still work. But that's part of my process. Okay, so my way of doing this now is going after what I call interest types. Interest types contain the brands and celebrities and the communities and the buyer interest, so that you're doing that as well, but it goes far beyond that in a very methodical and a systematic way that allows you to find out who your actual buyers are. You break up your audiences in a way to where later on, after you've run your ads, you can look at the reporting to see who your actual buyers are, and so that you're not really just throwing shit at the wall and hoping that it sticks, but you're using an algorithm to twist the Rubik's Cube or to form the clay into something beautiful or into what it's supposed to be. Okay, so that's what you're going to do with your Facebook targeting. And so interest types are what I call, and I've made this term up. If you hear somebody else talk about it, probably not the same thing. If it is, then they're probably learned it from me, because I made this up on my own. So interest types are categories of interest that show up repeatedly in Facebook targeting. So when you're going to your Facebook targeting, I'm going to show you guys how to do this here in a little bit, but right now I'm just going to break it down just so we can kind of get a mental understanding with words what this actually is. But they're categories of interest that show up repeatedly in Facebook targeting. So when you put in your keyword, step 1, you put in your keyword, like, today we're going to go after programmer, so we put in your word programmer. You're going to look for a list or you're going to look through the list of suggested interests that come up, and you're going to find in that list, you're going to find interest that come up over and over and over again, or categories of interest that come up over and over and over again. So you might find, I don't know what we're going to find. We're going to do this together, but we might find, degrees, certain types of degrees or something like that. We might find certain types of tools or softwares that are used for programmers. We might find certain types of, I doubt there's going to be any programmer celebrities, but we might find some sort of programmer buyer interest, or so. I don't know what we're going to find, but we're going to find lists. We're going to look through the list, and we're going to find categories of interest that come up over and over and over again, and then we're going to create our audiences or our interest types built around those. Okay, you're going to start with your keyword, then you're going to look for your categories of interests, which is what your interest types are. Find and list your interest types. And then you're going to build out your interest types. This means you're actually going to build your audiences and then save those audiences. And then 4, you're going to keep an eye out while you're building those interest types. You're going to keep an eye out for more interest types that you could build as well. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys this. I'm going to jump into my ads manager here in just a second, but I just want to make sure one last time that you understand what this is. And I'm actually going to give you some case studies. I have 10 targeting case studies I'm going to give you as a bonus. If you're watching this video, as long as you're seeing this video, then those bonuses are still up, so you'll have access to those. So you'll really understand what this means. But for now, let me just break it down again for you, the steps. You're going to start with your keyword. You're going to find and list your interest types. Your interest types are categories of interest that show up over and over and over again. Once you've listed your interest types, you're going to build out your interest types. So fill them in with the actual various keywords and interests. And then you're going to build out more interest types, because you're going to see some more that come up as you're building the first ones. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I mean by that here in a second. Before I do that, let me show you what we're going to be looking at targeting. We're going to be pretending that we're selling this shirt, this programmer shirt. And the shirt says, "My code works. I have no idea why." If you ever done any type of coding, sometimes you're just like, "Yay, it works. I don't know why. I don't know what I did, but all of a sudden it worked," right? You've had that feeling. You know exactly what that means. I went to school for electronics engineering, so I did a lot of coding in my days, and I still do. I still love it. But that's just very common. My code works. I have no idea why. Okay, so that's going to be. We're going to pretend that we're selling this print on demand, and we're going to go after programmers or coders who would buy this shirt, who would know the meaning, who would get the meaning, who would just laugh at it and really feel that it's something that they would wear. Okay, that's what we're going to do. All right, I have my audiences tab open here in my ads manager. I'm going to go over here to create audience and saved audiences. This is how I recommend you creating your audiences and saving them, simply because it gives you one location where you can continually see your audiences saved. And then you could just, when you're creating your ad sets, you could just pull them right up. You could just type in the name of the audience in the targeting section, and it just pulls right up, and you could pull them right in. All right, in this window, we're going to put in our targeting, and this is where we would save our audience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in our main keyword. Remember, step 1 was putting in your main keyword, so programmer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for what comes up most often, see if there's anything that comes up most often. All right, so there's software developer, there's game developer, there's programmer, there's lead programmer, Java programmer, PHP programmer, lead programmer. So what we see is, and notice that this one is a job title, and these ones are interests. So there's a lead programmer here that's job title. You have a lead programmer here that is an interest. And the interest is 29,000 people. The job title is 85,000 people. So they're 2 different targeting options, but are the same word. So what we see is programmer, developer. We see a bunch of different job titles that are coming up: software developer, game programmer, programmer, lead programmer, Java programmer. Those are like titles, right? Or job titles specifically, I think. And some of them are interests, and some of them are job titles down here, are categorized as demographic job titles. You have the demographics, you have behaviors, and you have interest. Here in Facebook, the behaviors we're losing. Facebook's taking those away. By the time you watch this video, they might already be gone. But right now we're looking at demographic, which is a job title, and you also have this one, interest, which is an interest, right? So you put in your main keyword, and you see the categories that come up over and over and over again. Well, when we put in our main keyword, we see 2 different interest types already right away. There was the the job titles by interest, which I would put into one category or one interest type, and then we have the job title by job title, which is another interest type that I would do. So there's two of them right away, and they're kind of the same one, but they're different because, as you can see, there was 85,000 people available in this one, and there was only 29 in this one. So there's 55,000 people difference in between those two different audiences. So they're completely different audiences. There might be some overlap, but they're still completely different audiences. Okay, so we're going to make two different audiences because they're going to respond differently. Okay, so we have the demographic job title and we have the interest job title. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to look for what I also notice is types of, let me see, I was going to say programming languages. There's different stuff related to programming languages. So there's like the .NET programmers. Where's the other one I seen somewhere? Java, PHP. So there's like certain programming languages. So there's three of them already now. So we have job titles by interest, job titles by demographic, and then programming languages is another interest type. So it's another way that we could break these up. All right, and that's all the main ones that jump out right away. We could, like, maybe this guy, Paul Graham, celebrity. That might be one. I just don't know how many celebrities there are, and we'll have to look into that one, I think. We'll make it 4. We'll do the job titles by interest and demographic, and we'll do types of programming or programming languages, actually, and then we'll do celebrity. So what I do next is I actually bring up an Excel spreadsheet. All right, so with my spreadsheet open, the column titles, so these are columns and these are rows if you don't know that. The top column titles are going to be my interest type names, and then what we fill in the individual rows with is the actual targeting or interest type keywords. So I'll show you that right now. So the first one we're going to do is job title interest. Then the next one we'll do job title demographic. And the next one we'll do languages, programming languages. And the next one was celebrities. I don't know how many of those we'll do, but we'll see what that one guy pulls up. All right, so right now we have 4 interest types listed, and that was step 2. Remember, step 1 was to find out what interest types we have. Step 2 was step 1 was to put in the keyword and see the interest types. Step 2 was to list the interest type. Step 3 is to build out the interest type. So now let's go back to our job titles. Interests. Let's start building those out. So I put in programmer, and let's start putting some of these job titles in, like lead programmer. And then what we do is we click suggestion and see what Facebook comes up with. Now these are all job titles. This one was an interest. We don't want to put in job titles with interest because this is a demographic. Remember, these were demographics. We want to put interest. So what we do is we scroll past the job titles and we find other programming keywords that are interests. Software engineer, lead programmer, software programmer, software architect. And remember, we're skipping all the job titles, software developer, and we're just picking interests. Software engineering, no, that's not a job title. Information technology, no. Software development, no. Computer programming, no. Software designer, oh, that's a job title. Web development, no. Web developer, okay, that's an interest. We could use that one. Web programmer, no, that's job titles. Web application developer, oh, that's a job title. All right, so we have actually enough interest in there because that gives us 2.6 million people to target. So what I would put in is job titles, interests. Okay? And what that does is that now gives me that one audience. And I would save that. Click Save, create audience. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another audience, create another saved audience. And instead of putting in the job title on that one, what I'm going to do is, well, I'm going to put in the job title, but I'm going to put in some that are job titles, the demographic, not the interest. As long as I can type. Okay, so put in programming, and now I look for the job title, or actually I put in programmer, I think is what I was using. And we find a job title, lead programmer. So last time we did the interest, but now we're going to do the job titles that are demographics. Okay? So suggestions, and now all of them are job titles. So software programmer, engineer, designer, developer, programmer, and you just collect a bunch of them. Java programmer. And you don't actually have to build them all out right now. What you do is you just fill out a bunch to give you a good size audience. That's 95,000. So we want a little bit more than that. We want over 100,000. And once we get those, then we have a big enough audience, because then we could create lookalike audiences. We could expand it later on. There's a lot of things we could do to expand it. Right now we just want a decent sized audience to see if this category of interest is even going to buy. Okay, PHP, senior software engineer, systems architect, PHP programmer. Let's see. That gives us 120,000. So we're going to put job title, demographic, and we'll save that. And then we're going to do the same thing, create a saved audience, and this time we're going to do programming languages. So I'll just pick up one that I know. I'll start with Java, and we'll put in interest Java, suggestions. We'll just grab a few more interests of different types of programming languages. C#, we'll grab some broad ones. PHP, HTML5, HTML, JavaScript, Ruby, Python. So these are all interests, and they're all programming languages. They're not programmer languages or programmers who know language, so it's not like HTML developer. It's HTML, right? And so those are programming languages. That's going to be another interest type. Like we have 10 million there almost. So let's just call it programming language. Okay? Then we would save that one. So now we have 3 interest types. Now let's create the other one. We have one more that we're going to look for, and that was the celebrity. Let's see if we can get anything from that guy. Actually, what am I doing? I wanted to put in programming, and, or was it programmer? And I scroll down. I'm going to find that Paul Graham guy. Okay, so I did a quick Google search, and I found a Paul Graham. He's an entrepreneur, but a computer scientist, it looks like. He probably started some company, like I said. Y Combinator. Okay, so you guys might have known him already if you're part of Y Combinator or familiar with how it started. But, okay, if you're part of Y Combinator, you're into programming. That's what it's all about. So we'll go ahead and go after him. Let's look at some other ones. So there's Elon Musk. Oh, look, that's why Y Combinator is there. That could actually become a community. We could put that one in as communities. Let's actually go over here to here and write community. And we have that there. Okay, so we'll put him in. Let's look at this Reid Hoffman guy. Okay, he was a co-founder of LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn and you know Reid Hoffman, or if you just know him as an entrepreneur, you might not be a coder. So that's not going to be a person that we really want to target. Okay, so that makes me wonder how good Paul Graham is going to be, but because we don't really know. Oh, look, there's other interest types now. There's website, hacker news, geek. These are other interest types now, right? Remember, step 4 was to keep a lookout for other interest types. So now there's media, right? Media was the hacker news. That's a media outlet, right, or a media source. So communities, media. So let's make Paul Graham. Let's just do Paul Graham. There's only 2.8 thousand people. Let's just skip him. I'll just skip something like that. This is just not reliable. Okay, but then let's put in. Let's go back to the community was Y Combinator. So we could actually put that in and see if that gives us some developers. Okay, so these are people that are starting up tech companies basically. So let's just not go after Y Combinator either, which would mean that the interest type for community isn't really going to be there. We're also not going to have the one for celebrity. So far we have the 3 right there, and then we have media. So now let's go back and put hacker news in. Hacker news, look at suggestions, information security, hacker computer security, security network, digital trends, Engadget. So there are some other sources of information for news, for computer science or programming, but they're not showing up. Maybe if we put in another one like Stack Exchange, which is a forum. So that'd be like a community or a media outlet. Stack Overflow, GitHub. Okay, so those are tools, forums, communities. I'll just call that other. We'll call that an other, which is 220,000. Other. Okay. So it's kind of a lump audience, but it's a lump audience of other stuff that didn't fit into other audiences, right? So now we have 4 of them. We have our other, we have our programming languages, and then we have our 2 job titles, interests, and demographic. So then what we do is I hover over that, I copy that right there, I come over to my handy dandy sheet, and I'm putting that right here in that list. Okay? Now you could also make it go downwards or make it look better if you want. What I would do is I would make it like that. Okay, so then I come back over here to the next one, and I'll grab the demographic one, and I'll come down and I'll grab job titles and copy that, and I'll bring that over to my sheet and put that in here and do the same thing as far as the word, text, wrap. Then what I'm going to do is grab the languages, and I'm just doing the same thing over and over. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just saving my interest types so that I have them stored for later on. You have them in your ads manager now, but we want to keep them offline too sometimes, just in case something happens to our ads account. So now we have our audiences, and we have them in a CSV file, and we are good to go. We have 4 audiences in a CSV file and in our audience section. Alright guys, I know that was helpful for a lot of you, so now it's time for you to go make your own audiences, build out your own interest types, and get your ads launched with this new method that is like building a beautiful vase rather than throwing shit at the wall. It's like solving the Rubik's Cube in under 6 steps, or in under 20 moves in 6 steps. You can do this with a process that's all you need to get your ads up and running in no time. Follow this process, and I promise you guys, this does work.